Welcome back to Qtronics. Today, as you can see from the thumbnail, we've got some unfortunate news. Now, I've spoken a lot about ultimate consoles on this channel where I actually want to go and put a console together, the best shell, best screen, and all that good stuff. I've got quite a few in the backlog I actually need to fix now, or set up, or finish. And obviously, projects get ahead of you. But this is a channel where I like to focus on a lot of Nintendo things. So what I wanted to do, really, for the end of the Switch was to make the ultimate Switch Lite. That was always my goal. And originally, the kit I'm going to talk about today was supposed to be released in November. It's been pushed back, and it's been pushed back again. But now there's some potential caveats that make the kit really questionable whether it's still something that is going to be viable in the future. Right, before we get into that story, guys, I do need to apologise because I was meant to give this Switch away at the start of the month. Things got away from me, so I never got around to it. I do need to mod this Switch, so that'll be cool, and change the analog stick. I will be doing that sometime in the next week. So at the end of the month, I will be giving away this console. So if that's something you're interested in, you need to subscribe to the channel and obviously look out for that video where I'll go through all the details and explain what you need to do to be able to enter for a chance to win this. Right then, let's get into the story. So if this is the first you've heard of the thing I'm talking about, which is the Super OLED screen for the Nintendo Switch Lite, basically Taki Udon and the team over at Retro Remake made a Switch Lite OLED screen. That's right. Obviously, we have the Switch OLED, but someone put an OLED screen in the Switch Lite, and it's glorious. It looks fantastic. I've seen other people use theirs, and obviously, if you just want the screen, that's out there now. But I wanted the touchscreen version, and not only that, I wanted the HDMI kit with that, because then the Switch Lite becomes this ultimate machine where you can technically, it's not quite docking, it's just an HDMI out, but you're almost at that point where you get the Switch OLED experience, but in a much smaller form factor. Obviously, you haven't got to worry about the Joy-Cons popping off. And to be honest, the Switch Lite is such a great little console. Obviously, I have one over here. The Switch Lite, for all intensive purposes, is probably the best Switch if it just had that OLED screen. Like I said, obviously, you've seen the one I'm giving away. This is my own personal version of the same console. And they're just so small and lightweight. And you can throw this in a bag or a rucksack or whatever whatever you carry. No judgment here. Throw it in your pocket, probably, if you've got the right size pockets, and it just works. That said, I wanted to create my own ultimate version, a Switch Lite OLED with HDMI. So, obviously, as soon as this came out, I pre-ordered this. So, I pre-ordered this well back in probably, was it August or September when it first came out? And that's the, as you can see, this kit here. It's not cheap, $115. It does come with the new glass. It comes with a new shell, buttons, everything basically. It's going to be a full modified version. Obviously, I went for clear black because at the end of the day, my channel is all about the clear back shell. That's what I like to do. So anyway, you might be thinking, so then what's the rumour? You might be thinking, so what's the problem? So as I said, it was meant to come out in November. It got delayed till January. And this is the email I received yesterday. So I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. Basically, the guys have reached out and said, you're receiving this email because the shipment's not ready. You have the following options. Obviously, continue to wait. Downgrade to just the touch screen, downgrade to a touch mega kit, or request a full refund. Obviously, I don't want any of that. I want the kit. I'm happy to wait. They then go on to explain basically what's happened, and the gist I get of it is trying to mount a board to the screen. That's where they're having their issues. Obviously, things happen, and at the end of the day, these guys are working on FPGA kits. Obviously, you've got the Mr. Pi they're working on. The new PlayStation, the FPGA PlayStation comes out this weekend from these same guys. So clearly these guys are just on it in terms of what they want to do. So I fully get the fact they will make this. But obviously they've just been hit with setback after setback. People are on holiday over the Christmas period and New Year. Obviously within China, New Year's there as well. And they basically said they managed to get in the factory for like a day or two to be able to create some more prototypes. And unfortunately, they all failed. So anyway, I'll get into the point of what they've said about the failure though, because that's the most important part of it. So as I said, they salvaged some to use anyway. The issue is, it turns out on the software side, this super screen with the HDMI needs new software. And also, there's a hardware issue with cables that need to be changed. Now, here's where they explain it. So basically what they're saying is the two connectors that you need, that you just saw in that picture above here, are in the wrong place to be able to connect up the board and the new 3mm jack module that they're going to have to create for this. Now, but what they've said is, while they're doing all that and they're trying to get that to work, they've got one more shot at it, I believe is what they're saying. But here's the kicker. I said, so while they were waiting, trying to get that sorted, they actually started to work on a standalone version. So they say here, the Switch 5 HDMI that did not rely on the OLED screen to function. Obviously, as the big kit needs the OLED screen. The current standalone version has two parts, the MIPI bridge and the MIPI to HDMI FGA board with the 3.5mm replacement board, which is what I was on about just. And they say, obviously, the good news is this works. It's fantastic. And here's the kicker. The bad news is that this version cannot be in mass production for 3 reasons. The MPI bridge is far too big for the available space in the back shell. The MPI to HDMI adapter is way too big for the available space in the back shell. And the cable that runs to it just doesn't exist at the moment. So basically, everything's too big. And they said the only way for this to actually work, as it is now, is to remove your cartridge slot and your heat pipes on your CPU, which obviously would mean the whole thing would overheat, which is a no-go. So basically, the fact that the standalone solution is probably the best thing forward for them at the moment because they can't get the screen to work. They hired a mechanical engineer and they worked through to create a version that is suitable for mass production. And this is what they come up with. Now, if you know anything about modding switches, this is a massive issue. So the new board for the HDMI out sits on top of the RAM. So underneath here is the RAM. But in this exact slot here, this is where you would install a mod chip. Now, I imagine the people who want an OLED screen in their Switch are probably the same people who want a mod chip. So even they explain here, we use the space marked in red above to hold the Super5 HDMI PCB. The entire installation is just as easy as the Super5 OLED touchscreen with one additional set of cables to connect. If you're using a stock Switch Lite, the entire upgrade can be installed without removing the screen in 5 minutes or less. The problem is our upgrade now reuses space that is used by some specific types of hardware modifications. If you have something installed in this space, our standalone version is not compatible with your hardware. It's regrettable because we tried to keep our upgrades compatible with all existing options on the market, but there's no other way we can work around not using that space to the left or right of the. It says we cannot use the space to the left or the right of the SoC, which is the main CPU there. We opted for the right side because it makes it easier to route the cables. So they go on to explain they're basically going to try and do that. They're going to try and get the screen version working. But even so with the screen version, they explain here, for both versions of the Super HDMI, our next version should be the mass production version. The combined version needs to do the changes outlined above, which I said they need to change the cables and stuff, including probably cutting a hole in the magnesium frame to fit the FPGA board, and the standalone version needs to be created following the update layout design above. They then go on to explain that the prototypes are going to take 20 days or so. So we're now talking, we won't even be in mass production until March or April. So again, and that assumes that their new prototypes work straight out the box. That's fine. At the end of the day, look, Taki and the team have done wonders here. Their products are really good. I'm going to wait for this. That's fine. My issue being is this, and that is mod chips are now going to have to move. So I've been doing a bit of thinking. The mod chips you buy now are all pre-made, basically. You stick some cables in at the bottom here, and it routes up here and pops in here, or it comes underneath and pops in here. So basically, installs for Switch Lites, if you want to have the Super 5 system in place as well, are going to be a little bit more difficult. Now, I believe we can use the Raspberry Pi Zero. Let me just get that up for you. So obviously, if we look at an existing mod chip, this is what it looks like. We've got this board here, and this is the board that unfortunately would end up sitting in this place here. But there is many guides out there, and originally this started out actually as an RP2040, and as you can see, this is actually a bit smaller. Obviously then, the problem becomes is actually we have to solder some little resistors onto some of these points here, so the whole job becomes a bit harder. But looking at that, actually, I think we should then be able to, as they mentioned, potentially use the left-hand side of this board, or potentially come over here. We're going to have to cut the shielding off the back of the Switch now, though, for this to work. There's no other way around that, unfortunately. But I think this is what Taki's talking about. Anyone who's already got one installed, if you're not a competent installer, which again, you don't need to be to install their product, it's just some plug and play cables. The screen is the hardest thing, but again, there's no soldering needed. It's literally you pop it out, pop it in, and it's just some cables you route. I'm going to talk to Americans. Some cables that you route around. So actually, I think ultimately he's worried that anyone who's not technically capable of moving their mod chip isn't going to be able to have this mod installed if they have to go down the route of giving you a screen and the standalone mod as part of it, rather than combine them into one and allowing this FPGA board to be smaller and somewhere else. So that's the worry, guys. Obviously, for me personally, I'm going to have to, once I get one of these, figure out where I can now stick my mod chip. I'm going to see if I can potentially reuse one of the existing ones. But again, as they use these ribbons, we'd now be sold enough ribbons onto pads anyway. So it might be the fact that I do get myself an RP 2040 Zero and have a look at doing this the old way. This is the old way to do it, basically. This is how you do it. This is how you used to do it before we had all these ribbons and stuff. And obviously you can see here, we can potentially use an RP24 Tiny, which is even smaller compared to the Zero. Just takes a bit less room. So yeah, obviously guys, I'm a bit sad that it's been delayed again. I really wanted to have the Ultimate Switch Lite done before the Switch 2 gets released, and it's looking very unlikely now. Obviously, I think Taki probably will have to delay it. If mass production is not there till April, we're probably not going to get this till June. They might come out at the same time, so maybe I can do a video on installing the Ultimate Switch Lite as the Switch 2 comes out, as its swan song. This is the final form of the Switch Lite, ready for all the stuff that's going to happen in the future. A bit like how the 3DS now is the ultimate modding machine for Nintendo's old games, just because it's a great little form factor. It has a dual screens. I imagine the Switch will end up becoming a lot like that. They're quite cheap now. Honestly, you can pick up a Switch Lite cheaper than you can pick up a new 3DS XL, which is absolutely crazy. So yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you actually had a look at any of these products on here? Have you considered potentially getting a Switch Lite OLED screen, or were you waiting for more of these products to come out so you can actually see people install them and see how they are? Let me know in the comments your thoughts, guys. And obviously, fingers crossed that at some point in the future on this channel, I can make the Ultimate Switch Lite. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe. It helps the channel to grow. And I'll catch you later. See ya.